Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My palm hit the table so hard the plates jumped. Everyone froze. I heard my own voice before I even felt my throat. I am done with your attitude at my table tonight. I am Lisa, 49, and that was the second I stepped over a line I did not even see. My daughter stared at me like a stranger. Her boyfriend leaned back in his chair, slow, almost amused. That look pushed something ugly forward in me. You think this is funny right now? He shrugged and glanced at his phone again, thumb already moving. The sound of the screen tap was louder than any shout. I felt heat crawl up my neck like a warning I ignored. Put the phone away during dinner. I tried to keep my tone level, tried to sound reasonable. He did not look up, just smirked like I was background noise. My daughter's foot nudged his under the table in a small panic. It is not a big deal, Lisa. He finally looked at me when he said my name. No ma'am, no Mrs. Anything, just Lisa, like we were drinking together. Across the table my sister stared at her plate and waited. I know some people would laugh that off and move on. In that moment it felt like he pressed a finger on a bruise. My daughter's shoulders were already tense from their late entrance. Every small disrespect stacked up in my head like evidence. 2 hours earlier I had checked the clock for the fourth time. The food sat ready, family already seated, and 2 chairs still empty. When my daughter finally rushed in, she barely met my eyes. He walked behind her like they were arriving at some casual hangout. Sorry, traffic or whatever. He dropped into a seat and tossed his keys down. No hugs, no apology, not even a quick greeting for the room. I swallowed my irritation and told everyone to start serving themselves. I kept thinking he would correct himself after the first drink. He never did. He laughed too loud at his own jokes and talked over my brother. My daughter laughed along, but her eyes kept checking my face. Looking back now, I can see how tight my jaw stayed. At the time I told myself I was just tired and protective. Every story he told made him sound like the star of the night. I started counting the ways he refused to blend into our family. So anyway, this one guy at work is such an idiot. That was how he described his boss in front of my husband. He bragged about skipping shifts and called it playing the system. My husband raised an eyebrow and took a slow drink instead of answering. What are your plans long term? I asked it as calmly as I could manage. He shrugged, stabbed his fork into his food, and barely looked up. Make money, live good, not stress like old people do. Old people. That stung more than I wanted to admit. My daughter kicked his ankle under the table again, sharper this time. He gave her a quick grin, then went right back to his plate. I am just being honest, relax. He waved one hand like he was soothing a fussy child. I felt my daughter flinch a little at that gesture toward me. My fingers tightened around my glass until they actually hurt. You are in my house right now. My voice came out lower than I expected. I was aiming for calm, it landed closer to warning. He looked at me like he could not believe I was serious. Okay, and I said thank you for dinner. He pushed his chair slightly back, just enough to lean. It was not the words, it was the way he rolled them out. Like I was overreacting to some tiny harmless joke. My daughter tried to shift the topic toward anything lighter. She asked my brother about his new job, forced a bright smile. Her hand slipped onto her boyfriend's arm, almost pleading for cooperation. He checked another notification instead and grinned at his screen again. I watched her eyes follow that little movement of his thumb. She saw it only half a second after I did. Her smile strained and that tiny crack in her face wrecked me. I decided I was not letting this slide one more second. Phone down now or you can eat somewhere else. The room went quiet except for a distant car outside. He blinked once, then laughed like I had told a joke. This is how you treat guests around here. He said guests like he was about to tip the staff and leave. My daughter whispered his name under her breath in warning. I heard my own breathing and nothing else for a heartbeat. I knew exactly how far I was about to push this. I treat adults with basic manners like adults. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping hard on the floor. If you want to join this family, you show real respect. My chest felt tight, but the anger felt tighter and louder. He raised both hands halfway in that fake surrender gesture. Relax, I am not trying to marry anyone tonight. He looked at my daughter when he said it, almost teasing her. Her face went blank like someone hit a switch inside her head. That was the moment I decided he needed to feel small. Not later, not through a calm talk, but right there. I wanted him to remember this table every time he saw her. That desire felt righteous back then, it feels poisonous now. If you want to stay seated with her, you apologize. My words came out slow enough that everyone heard each one. Not that lazy sorry you toss around when you are bored. I leaned forward until my hands rested on the table again. His jaw tightened for the first time since he arrived. He looked from me to my daughter and then around the table. My husband shifted slightly, ready to step in if needed. No one moved, everyone waited to see who would fold first. For what exactly, Lisa? He forced a grin, but it did not reach his eyes now. You act like I slapped someone or flipped the table. His fingers tapped the edge of his plate, restless and defensive. For the way you walked in late like we were optional. I could hear my own voice splitting into sharp pieces now. For ignoring everyone, for treating our home like a joke. I pointed at the floor between us and heard my daughter gasp. You want a show of respect, give one back now. I should have stopped there, I know that as I write this. Instead, I let the worst sentence I ever spoke leave my mouth. Get up and apologize on your knees if you really mean it. My daughter's chair screeched as she lurched forward in panic. Mom, no, that is insane, just stop already. Her hand grabbed my arm, fingers shaking, eyes huge with fear. I pulled my arm free because I thought I was saving her. He laughed once short, shocked, disbelieving. You want me to kneel in front of everybody right now? He looked at my husband again, maybe hoping for backup. My husband just stared at his plate like it might explode. You cannot be serious, Lisa. My sister's voice cut through the silence from the far side. She was the only one who actually challenged me out loud. I did not even glance at her because my pride had control. I am completely serious, or you can leave my house. Each word felt like a door locking behind me. I saw the hatred start to build in my daughter's eyes. I pretended not to see it because I was already committed. He pushed his chair back all the way and stood slowly. For a second I thought he would walk out, slam the door, disappear. My heart actually hoped for that quick, clean ending. Instead, he stepped around the table and stood right beside me. My daughter stood too, hand reaching for his wrist in panic. Please do not, we can just go, we do not need this. Her voice broke on the last word, thin and shaky. He gently moved her hand away without once looking at her. His eyes stayed on mine while he bent his knees. The room shrank around that movement, everything else erased. He knelt at my feet with his hands resting on his thighs. My daughter covered her mouth as if she might throw up. You want the words, here they are. His voice was quiet now, but it carried through the silence. I am sorry for being late and disrespectful in your house. He emphasized house like he was swallowing something sharp. I stood there and let him stay on the floor too long. I could feel the power of it like a weight in my chest. For a second I actually believed I had done the right thing. My daughter's eyes burned into the side of my face like grief. Get up, that is enough. My tone finally softened, but it was much too late. He rose without another word and walked back to his chair. The space where his knees had been felt like a crime scene. No one picked up their fork again for a long moment. My daughter stared straight ahead, breathing fast through her nose. He sat rigid, hands folded, phone forgotten beside his plate. I told myself I had restored order, and the lie tasted sweet. I did not know yet that I had just driven a spike through them. I did not understand that the person truly kneeling there was her. All I saw was a young man forced to acknowledge my rules. All she saw was the love of her life humiliated by her mother. I knocked on her bedroom door hard enough to sting my knuckles. No answer. I tried the handle and it would not move. That lock had never felt like a wall until that morning. Open up, please. My voice sounded weirdly calm to my own ears. Just for a minute, I only want to talk. I pressed my forehead to the wood and waited for anything. The mattress creaked inside and then went quiet again. I pictured her curled up, fully dressed from the night before. That image twisted something in my chest and made me stubborn. If you stay silent, we are going to make this worse. The door finally clicked and opened just a crack. One of her eyes appeared in the gap, and it was raw. She did not look at me directly, she looked past me. She probably hoped I would evaporate if she avoided my face. "I have to shower," she muttered and pulled the door wider. Her voice sounded sanded down like she had been crying for hours. She tried to step around me with a towel under her arm. I reached out on instinct and caught her elbow too tightly. "We need to clear last night before you go anywhere." The words came out more like a demand than an invitation. Her head snapped toward me and I finally saw both eyes. They were dull and furious and already completely done with me. "I am not talking about that," she said and yanked free. She did not raise her tone, which somehow felt more brutal. "If I start, I will say something I cannot take back." The promise in that sentence scared me more than any yelling. I tried again because I still believed I had fixed something. "I know it got intense, but it needed to happen eventually." I was already defending myself before she even accused me. She shook her head once like she was shaking water away. "You embarrassed me," she whispered, and her throat worked hard. "You embarrassed him, and you enjoyed watching it happen." That last part hit like a slap because it was not fully false. I opened my mouth to argue, and she closed the bathroom door. The shower started and drowned out my next sentence. I stood in the hallway barefoot, listening to the water run. It felt like she was washing off our entire family in there. I hated that thought, so I grabbed onto annoyance instead. By the time she came out 15 minutes later, she was dressed. Jeans, sneakers, hair pulled back, phone already in her hand. She did not glance at me as she headed for the stairs. I stepped in front of her because I still thought I could. "Where are you going this early?" I tried to keep it light and casual and failed completely. "To talk to him," she answered without slowing her pace. That pronoun carried more weight than anything else that morning. "You should give him space to cool off first." That was my attempt at compromise and control in one breath. She pulled her bag higher on her shoulder and glared at me. "He is not the one who needs space from last night." We stopped at the bottom step staring at each other. For a second I saw her as a little kid again. Then her jaw tightened and that soft memory vanished immediately. "You do not get to come after me and then manage the repair. I am your mother, I am allowed to set boundaries here." I hated how stiff that sounded, like a script from a pamphlet. She laughed once and it came out harsh and humorless. "You set a stage, you did not set boundaries." She moved past me before I could block her again. Keys jingled in her hand as she grabbed them off the hook. I followed her into the entryway, still stupidly confident. "You will be back in an hour and we can all talk." She paused with her hand on the knob and looked sideways. "Do not text him, do not call, do not go near his place." Each instruction landed like an accusation I refused to accept. I nodded anyway because I thought I still had leverage. The door shut and the house felt strangely off balance. I walked to the kitchen and tried to make myself busy. I poured coffee and did not drink any of it. Every small sound made me think I heard her car returning. When the clock hit 10, I checked my phone again. No messages from her, no messages from him, nothing at all. I typed out a short text asking if she was safe. I erased it 3 times before finally sending the shortest version. "You okay?" That was the entire message, no explanation and no pressure. The bubble showed up for a second, then disappeared without response. That little vanish made my stomach tighten more than any argument. My husband wandered in eventually and leaned against the counter. "You two need to cool off before you rip each other apart." He rubbed his eyes and avoided bringing up the kneeling scene. Even he knew that detail lived like a loaded gun between us. "I am not the one running out to him first thing," I snapped. The sharpness surprised both of us, it cut the air in half. He raised his hands slightly in that universal back-off motion. "I am just saying give her some breathing room before pushing." The problem was I did not trust breathing room. Breathing room was where resentment grew claws in my experience. I paced from one end of the room to the other repeatedly. Every step added a new imaginary conversation between them without me. Noon rolled closer and still nothing from my daughter. My imagination started filling in the silence with worst-case scenes. Him cursing me out to her, her defending him, her choosing. The more I pictured it, the more my earlier certainty frayed. I finally grabbed my own keys and walked toward the front door. My husband blocked the way quietly and tilted his head. Where are you going now? To clear this up before he poisons her against us completely. She is not a kid anymore, he reminded me with a sigh. If you show up there, you're going to prove his point. That sentence landed heavier than he probably meant it to. I stood there gripping the keys until the edges dug into my palm. I put the keys back slow. Lie because I hated that he was right. If I barged in, I would become the controlling monster in their story. So I went back to pacing and replaying last night instead. Every replay made my behavior look a little worse and still justified. By mid-afternoon, my nerves felt shredded and useless. The quiet of the house did not feel peaceful at all. I kept glancing at the driveway through the window like a lookout. Each empty check built the sense that something irreversible was happening. Then finally a car pulled in fast and stopped hard. I recognized the sound of her door slamming before I saw her. She came inside with her shoulders hunched and head tipped down. Her keys landed on the counter with a sharp clatter that made me jump. Her eyes were swollen and her mouth trembled slightly. She moved like every muscle in her body hurt from holding together. I reached toward her without thinking and she flinched back. That recoil did more damage than anything she could have said. What happened? I asked, even though I already knew. She swallowed and stared at a spot on the floor. He broke up with me, she answered, and her voice cracked. The words did not even sound real coming out of her. My first reaction was awful, and I am not proud. Some small part of me felt vindicated for half a second. If he cannot handle one hard conversation, then good riddance. That came out before my brain caught up to the damage. Her head snapped up so fast I heard her neck pop. Hard conversation, she repeated like the words tasted disgusting. You made him get on his knees in front of everyone. She stepped closer until we were almost nose to nose. He told me he felt stripped of every ounce of pride. Her hands were shaking now as she spoke. He said he could get past you yelling, but not that part. Every sentence was another swing aimed straight at my choices. I tried to redirect the blame because that felt safer. If he cared about you, he would not walk away over ego. I heard how cold it sounded and still could not stop. She laughed, but there was nothing amused in it at all. Ego, she echoed and wiped her face with her sleeve. He was sobbing when he said he loved me and still could not stay. She pressed her fingers against her lips to control the shaking. He said he would always remember looking up at you from the floor. That particular image made my stomach lurch violently. I had not pictured it from his angle before that moment. In my memory, I was just standing firm, not towering over anyone. Now I saw myself the way he must have seen me. He told me if we stayed together, that scene would repeat somehow. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper, and it forced me closer. Maybe not with kneeling, but with something worse later. She met my eyes and I saw nothing but accusation there. So yes, he left, but not because he is weak. She took a step back like she was creating a new border. He left because you turned my family into a test I could not pass. Hearing her say family like that made me feel suddenly off balance. I reached for her again, desperate to fix at least one thing. Sweetheart, we can talk to him together, we can straighten this out. Even as I offered it, I knew it sounded desperate and controlling. She slapped my hand away and shook her head fiercely. You are the last person he ever wants to see again. She said it slowly so there was no room for misunderstanding. And right now, I do not want to look at you either. Her chest rose and fell fast like she had just run upstairs. I backed away a few steps because I finally felt scared. Not of her yelling, but of the distance forming in her eyes. You will calm down and we will figure this out later. I clung to that sentence like a life raft that had holes. She turned toward the hallway without answering. Halfway there she paused and looked over her shoulder. Later is exactly what you ruined last night, she murmured. Then she walked to her room and the lock slid into place again. I opened my laptop and the cursor blinked like it was judging me. My fingers hovered over the keys and did not move. The house was quiet enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. I decided if my daughter would not talk to me, strangers would. I clicked into a fresh post box on that messy advice forum. Title line first. Did I go too far making my daughter's boyfriend apologize? I stared at it, then added in front of family and exhaled sharply. It still sounded mild compared to what actually happened at dinner. So I toned it down even more because that felt safer. Made him show respect looked better than made him kneel. Even typing that word made my stomach twist, so I skipped it. Throwaway because my daughter uses this site. I typed that next and hoped it was true. I did not even know if she really read this stuff or not. Paranoia did not stop me though, I was too wound up. I started describing the evening but trimmed every rough edge. Boyfriend arrived late instead of strolled in, acting entitled. Used his phone repeatedly instead of ignored everyone at the table. I shaved the story down until I sounded strict but reasonable. Every version I wrote made me look either cruel or weak. So I kept rewriting until I landed in the middle. Asked him to apologize properly in front of everyone. That word properly carried a lot of weight for me that day. I left out my daughter's shaking hands. I left out how long I let him stay on the floor. Those parts sat heavy in my chest while I edited around them. It felt like hiding dirty dishes under a towel before guests arrive. When I hit post, my whole body tensed. It was ridiculous, it was just text on a screen. Still, my finger trembled on the trackpad like I had launched something huge. I refreshed once, then again, waiting for judgment to appear. The first reply popped up faster than I expected. "You're home, your standards, he was rude, consequences happen." I latched onto that sentence like proof I was not insane. See, someone else got it, someone who owed me nothing. More comments stacked under the first and the tone shifted. If this is accurate, forcing a grown man onto the floor is abusive. That word made my throat close for a second. I actually checked the definition tab like a coward looking for loopholes. Another person wrote, "You sound less protective and more controlling." My jaw clenched and I sat up straighter in my chair. I started answering under that one before I even finished reading it. "I grew up with chaos, I will not let my daughter repeat that." That tiny hint about my own past slipped out without planning. I deleted the line 3 times, then left it in anyway. It felt like the only way to explain why respect obsessed me. Even though I was not actually explaining anything, just hinting around it. Did your daughter ask you to intervene or did you volunteer? That question landed harder than the nastier comments. I stared at it longer than I wanted to admit. Then I wrote, "I acted because I saw her uncomfortable and shrinking." That part was true, even if my reaction went nuclear. I told myself I had stepped in where she could not. The replies did not buy that version as easily as I hoped. "Protecting or speaking over her?" someone asked, and that one stung. My phone buzzed on the table and broke my focus. A text from my sister flashed on the screen. "Are you seriously blasting last night online right now?" My stomach dropped because I had not expected family to see it. "Who sent that to you?" I wrote back with shaking hands. "Doesn't matter, delete it, this is not helping anything." I pictured her at her own kitchen table, reading my filtered confession. One more person watching me juggle guilt and stubborn pride in public. Instead of deleting, I scrolled further down the thread. Someone had written a long response breaking down every detail. They described how it probably felt for him to kneel there. Reading it from that angle made my shoulders tense up painfully. Picture your daughter watching the person she loves lowered like that. That line knocked the air out of me for a second. I had focused so tightly on his attitude that night. I had not really sat with what that pose did to her. Another user shared, "My parent did this power stuff with partners, I walked away." I stared at that sentence like it was my future in a single line. They wrote about not bringing dates home anymore after one big incident. How the parent never understood why contact faded once they moved out. I wanted to argue with that stranger through the screen. Tell them I was nothing like their mother, that my motives were cleaner. The more I typed though, the more I saw the same patterns. Everything I wrote circled back to control dressed up as concern. For a moment, I hovered over the delete button. If I removed the post, maybe the judgment would vanish too. But some twisted part of me wanted the final verdict. Like if enough people called me right, my daughter would magically agree. "Have you apologized to your daughter at all?" Another question appeared. My fingers froze over the keyboard because the answer was ugly. I had offered explanations, warnings, phone rules, but no actual sorry. The comment thread went quiet on my end while I sat there. I clicked back to edit and added one new detail. I might have let the apology part go on longer than necessary. That sentence was such a small confession for such a big moment. Still, it was the most I could admit to strangers that afternoon. By the time I closed the laptop, the replies were still climbing. Some defended me, some tore me apart, some tried to stay neutral. None of them knew what my hallway sounded like with a locked door. None of them knew how close their warnings were to my reality. I texted her from the kitchen, even though her room was upstairs. "You coming down to eat?" The dots blinked for a second, then vanished. The silence from one floor above me felt heavier than any shout. I walked to the bottom of the staircase and called up. "We made dinner, you need real food." The only answer was the faint click of her door locking again. That tiny sound did more damage than anything she had thrown at me. I stood there staring up like a guard outside a closed cell. My husband passed behind me and touched my shoulder once. "Give her some breathing room," he murmured and kept walking. I stayed planted on the step because doing nothing felt like surrender. Eventually she came down on her own with headphones on. She crossed the hallway without glancing toward the kitchen. She grabbed a drink from the fridge, eyes glued to her screen. I watched her thumbs move fast while her jaw stayed clenched. "Are you ignoring me now or just pretending not to hear?" I leaned against the doorway so she had to walk past me. She paused, took one earbud out, and kept her gaze on the floor. "I am busy," she muttered and pushed past my arm. "Too busy to sit at the table for 10 minutes. I heard my tone sharpen in spite of myself. She stopped halfway to the stairs, shoulders stiff, fingers tight on her phone. "Too tired to play normal for you," she answered without turning. That line stuck in my chest long after she went back upstairs. Normal for you. Like I had built some stage version of her and demanded a performance. I hated how accurate that sounded when I replayed it in my head. The next week turned into a pattern I pretended not to track. Doors opening late, doors closing early, footsteps skipping shared spaces. She mastered drifting through the house without being in it. I started counting the number of words she used each day and losing. I tried casual questions at random times to break the freeze. "How are classes?" "Fine." "Need anything for school?" "No." Each answer was short and solid, like brick stacked on brick. One afternoon I knocked gently while her music hummed behind the wall. "Can we talk for a minute?" I asked through the wood. About what came back flat and wary. About how we keep living in the same place without hating each other. The knob turned halfway, then stopped. "I am not ready," she said, voice muffled and tight. I rested my palm against the door like that could bridge anything. "Waiting forever will not make this easier," I whispered to nobody. When she finally left the house for longer stretches, I noticed. Hoodie, keys, backpack, quick glance at the driveway, then gone. She never answered when I asked where she was headed. Out was the only word I got, no matter how I framed the question. You know that itching feeling when logic and paranoia fight? I told myself she was with friends at campus, anywhere harmless. Then my brain replayed that breakup speech, the tears, the shaking. I started imagining secret meetings that shut me out completely. The first time I caught her smiling at her phone again, it hit hard. Not a little polite smile, a full soft look that curled her mouth. She tried to hide it by tilting the screen away when I walked in. My stomach dropped like I had walked in on something intimate. "Who is that?" I asked, aiming for playful and landing on sharp. "No one," she answered too fast and locked the screen. I watched the reflection of her face in the blank glass. Guilt flickered there before she masked it with boredom. I wanted to grab the phone and scroll through everything. I wanted passwords, call logs, location history, all of it. Instead, I opened my own device and went straight to her profiles. If she would not talk to me, maybe the internet would. Her picture grid looked strangely clean now. The photos with him were gone, not even a group shot left. It looked like she had erased the last year with a few taps. My chest tightened, but I told myself it meant she was moving on. I checked his page next, fingers trembling as I typed his name. Most of their pictures were missing there too. The big birthday post, the goofy car selfies, all wiped. Only older shots remained, nothing that gave me a timeline. I should have closed the app and minded my own life. Instead, I went into full detective mode like some unstable teenager. I checked who liked his recent posts, one by one, scrolling slowly. Her handle did not appear once, and I almost felt relieved. Then I caught something small on his story list. A little ring icon near the top, a jewelry account he had tagged. The story itself was just a hand with a shiny band on it. No faces, no names, just that glint and his username under it. My pulse jumped stupidly high for something so vague. People tag stores all the time, I told myself. It could be an ad, it could be someone else, it meant nothing. The way my heart reacted said I did not actually believe that. For the next few days, I watched her schedule like a hawk. S.A. He started leaving around the same time every evening. Always the same quick explanation thrown over her shoulder. Group project, study meetup, library, never more than that. I offered rides more than once, pretending to be helpful. I like the drive, she replied every single time. That phrase turned into a code I could not crack. It sounded too close to, I do not want you near where I am going. At night I heard her come home way quieter than before. Sometimes the front door barely clicked, like she eased it shut. Her footsteps stayed close to the walls, avoiding the creaky spots. All of that effort existed solely to keep from waking me up. One Friday my sister dropped by and caught the new routine. She watched my daughter dart out with barely a greeting. After the door shut, my sister turned to me with raised brows. So what is your plan here? Just stare at her back forever? I am giving her time, I insisted, more for myself than for her. Time for what? She asked, folding her arms tightly. For this whole situation to settle before we talk like adults. Even as I said it, I heard how childish that sounded. She is already talking, my sister replied, tapping her phone. Just not with you. That stung in a slow, ugly way because I knew it was true. I imagined long messages flying back and forth that never mentioned me kindly. That night I broke my own promise and opened her profile again. A new photo had appeared, just a simple shot in a parking lot. She stood next to a car I did not recognize, smiling lightly. The caption was a short song lyric about finding home. I scanned the likes out of habit and almost missed it. His username was there, buried under hundreds of others. My finger hovered over the small heart next to his name. I zoomed in like proximity on the screen could give me answers. So they were talking again, at least enough for that. Maybe more, maybe much more, my brain filled in the blanks fast. I pictured them meeting in that lot, climbing into that car together. My rules, my house, my pride, none of it seemed to matter out there. I wanted to confront her right then, shove the evidence in her face. Ask her if she understood what she was inviting back into her life. Ask if she remembered how broken she was on our kitchen floor. Instead, I closed the app and sat in the dark, nails digging into my palms. Here is the part I still hate admitting. A small selfish relief crept in under the fear. If they stayed linked online, I could still track the outline of her choices. Losing that window scared me even more than losing the argument. The next morning she breezed through the kitchen with that same quiet glow. She hummed under her breath while plugging her phone into her pocket. You are in a good mood, I tried, testing the ground again. Yeah, she answered, lips twitching, I finally feel like things are lining up. That wording made my skin prickle in a way I did not understand yet. It did not sound like a girl who just got over a breakup. It sounded like someone standing at the start of something big. I did not know it then, but I was already watching her walk out of my version of her life. I heard his voice outside before I knew he was back. I was rinsing a plate when laughter floated in from the driveway. I froze with my hands still wet over the sink. Then I recognized her laugh tangled with his and my chest burned. I moved to the window on instinct, staying out of direct view. His car sat crooked near the curb, engine still running. She leaned against the hood while he stood close between her knees. His hand rested on her waist like it had never left. He tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear and she smiled. Not nervous, not guilty, just quietly happy in a way I had not seen. I pressed my fingers into the windowsill hard enough to feel bone. A stupid part of me still expected her to push him away. Are you sure you want to tell them at all? He asked softly. The words reached me through the open crack in my kitchen window. My heart kicked up so fast I could hear it in my ears. She shrugged and toyed with the edge of his jacket. I am not announcing anything until I absolutely have to. Her voice sounded lighter than it ever did with me. They will hear about us eventually, but not from my mouth first. Hearing myself grouped as them made my throat go dry. He laughed once and kissed her forehead like it was routine. You know I am not hiding you, he murmured, fingers squeezing her hips. It is your family I am ducking, not you. I flinched, even though I was the only one who heard it. You and my mom see each other and it turns into a war. She slid off the hood and stepped closer to him. I just want to enjoy you without feeling like a referee. Every word chipped away at the role I thought I still held. I will prove I am serious, with or without her blessing. He reached into his pocket and flashed something small and square. My stomach twisted so violently I had to steady myself on the counter. She caught his wrist and pulled it back down quickly. Not here, she whispered, glancing toward the house automatically. I want to remember that moment without her peeking from a curtain. It took everything in me not to drop the blinds in sheer panic. Instead, I crouched slightly, hiding like some villain in a cheap movie. I cannot keep this in my car forever, he joked under his breath. Well then, drive us somewhere she never goes, she answered. She slid into the passenger seat, still smiling at him. He looked toward the house once and then climbed in behind the wheel. The car backed out and disappeared down the street. I stayed frozen in that ridiculous half-crouch by the window. My mind raced to make the box mean anything but what it meant. Promise ring, joke, gift, anything except what I already knew. When I could finally move, I grabbed a towel and dried my hands. I wiped the same plate 3 times without realizing it. My brain replayed her line about not telling us herself. I kept hearing eventually like a threat instead of a plan. Hours crawled by without a single message from her. Every notification that wasn't her name made me more frantic. By late afternoon, I was refreshing apps like a teenager. I told myself I was checking the news while actually stalking my own kid. Her main profile looked exactly the same at first glance. Same photos, same short captions, nothing new on the grid. I tapped her stories and saw a couple of old reposts. Nothing with him, nothing with cars, nothing with jewelry. That should have calmed me down, but it did the opposite. Silence when I knew something huge was brewing felt calculated. If she had posted something big, would she want me to see it? Or had I already been moved to some restricted list without knowing? My answer came from an angle I did not expect at all. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister around dinner time. Have you checked Instagram today? She wrote with 3 wide eyes. Before I could respond, a screenshot popped up under it. The image loaded slowly, line by line, like it was torturing me. My daughter's hand filled the center of the frame. On her finger sat a ring that did not look like a prank. His hand covered hers, their thumbs touching like a promise. Above the photo was a caption from one of her closest friends. She said yes, it read, followed by a trail of excited emojis. The friend had tagged both of them and added my favorite couple. I scrolled down and saw a stream of comments stacking under it. About time. Knew you two were endgame. Next stop aisle. His relatives were already dropping hearts and making wedding jokes. My name was nowhere in that pile of celebration. My sister's next message came through while I stared at the screen. Did she tell you already, or did I just spoil it? My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. I had no idea how to answer without sounding pathetic. She mentioned they were getting serious, I wrote back finally. The lie tasted bitter even as I typed it. I guess this is how she wanted everyone to find out. Even through text, I could feel my own defensiveness leaking out. I went back to her profile and tried again. This time when I refreshed, a new post appeared at the top. Same photo, slightly different angle, same ring shining on her hand. The caption under hers was short and direct. Forever with my best friend. That was it. No mention of family, no reference to any blessing. Just a life decision framed as 2 people against the world. I tapped the 3 dots in the corner out of habit. One option caught my eye and made everything click. Why am I seeing this post? The app asked helpfully. That is a good question, I muttered at my screen. I checked the privacy settings the way my niece had taught me once. Buried in the details was a list I recognized. She had put a separate group together for close friends. I was not on it, but my sister was, and so were his relatives. That knowledge landed harder than the ring itself. It meant she had planned my exclusion ahead of time. She had sat there selecting names, sliding mine into the outer circle. She had carved out a celebration where I simply did not exist. Comments continued to pour in while I watched like a stranger. Her college roommate wrote, "Cannot wait to stand next to you." His cousin dropped, "Mom is already planning the party." I scanned that thread for any sign of our side of the family. My sister finally added a simple "Congratulations, proud of you both." I stared at that line until my eyes blurred a little. She had every right to be supportive, I knew that logically. Emotionally, it felt like someone pulling up a chair at a table without me. I started to type my own public reply 3 separate times. "Love you, happy for you." So excited to welcome him in officially. "Call us, let's celebrate soon." Every version sounded fake, needy, or rage-soaked, depending on the attempt. In the end, I backed out without posting anything. I felt childish and petty, and still could not make my fingers move. How do you congratulate your kid on a future you tried to prevent? How do you sound supportive when you are still replaying their worst night? Here is the part that burns even now. My first clear thought after the shock faded was not, "She is engaged." It was, "They did not need me for this step at all." The role I thought I had as gatekeeper just crumbled in one scroll. I closed the app and set the phone down on the table. My pulse pounded so hard my hands shook slightly. Every noise outside made me listen for her car in the driveway. I knew that when she walked through that door, everything between us would shift again. She set a stack of papers in front of me and waited. No greeting, no small talk, just that pile between us. My stomach knew what it was before my eyes read anything. I unfolded the top page and his name hit me first. Rental agreement, both their signatures already inked across the bottom. You know that buzzing feeling when your ears ring for no reason? That is what rushed in while I tried to focus on the print. I swallowed hard and heard the sound louder than my own voice. "I told you I was figuring things out." She leaned back, arms crossed over her chest like armor. "You just never actually heard me." Every word landed like she had rehearsed this speech in a mirror. "This is the place we picked." Her fingertip tapped the address near the top of the page. "We move in next month, deposit is already paid." My vision blurred a little, but I kept scanning the text. "You did all of this without us even knowing." My thumb dug into the edge of the paper until it bent. "You could have come to us before signing anything with him." Desperation made it sound like a lecture instead of concern. "Every time I try to bring him up, we end like this." She motioned between us, eyebrows tight, mouth a straight line. "So I stopped asking for your input on my relationship." Hearing her say relationship instead of engagement twisted the knife deeper. "You are moving in with a man who walked out on you." I pushed the papers back toward her like they burned my hands. "A man who quit instead of working through one rough night." The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I was lying. She laughed once, sharp, no humor anywhere near it. "He walked away from you, not from me." She tapped her chest with 2 fingers, slow and deliberate. "And apparently he was right too, because you still do not get it. I was protecting you that night." It came out fast, almost automatic, like a reflex. Someone had to stand up and show him there are lines. I hated how familiar and stale that excuse sounded even to me. She leaned forward, palms flat on the table between us. "Mom, he already knows there are lines." Her voice dropped lower, steady, like she was done arguing. "You are the only one pretending that scene was some lesson." I opened my mouth and nothing smart came out. Every defense I had used on strangers online felt flimsy now. They did not have to look into her eyes while they judged me. She did, and she remembered every second I wanted to forget. "I am telling you our plan because I still want you around." She took the papers back and slid them into a folder. "But things are going to change when we move into that apartment." The way she said change made my chest tighten more than the lease. "What does that mean exactly?" My voice sounded smaller than I wanted, almost careful. "Are you cutting us off because I handled one dinner badly?" I heard the begging under the sarcasm and hated myself for it. She took a breath like she was bracing for impact. We are starting our life together, and you are not in charge there. Her fingers twisted the cap of her water bottle back and forth. If you cannot respect that, I have to protect us from you. Protect you from your own mother, listen to yourself. I stood up too fast and the chair scraped across the floor. You are acting like I am some danger, not the person who raised you. My pulse pounded in my neck as soon as I finished. She rose too, slower, more controlled, eyes never leaving mine. You are a danger to his dignity, and by extension to mine. She said it calmly, like she had practiced that exact sentence. That is what he said when we decided to try again. The words "we decided to try again" made my head spin. So it had not been some quick rebound, not an impulsive reunion. They had sat somewhere together and weighed me like a risk factor. I imagined them listing my habits the way doctors list symptoms. He is in the driveway right now, she added, watching my reaction. He will not come inside without a real apology from you. I looked toward the front of the house like he might materialize. My heartbeat jumped at the idea of him just beyond the door. He wants me to go out there and tell him I was wrong. I tried to say it with contempt and failed halfway through. My throat tightened around the word wrong like it had barbed wire. He humiliated you by quitting, and he wants me to crawl. No. She shook her head slowly, cutting the air between us. He humiliated himself in your eyes already, and you pushed it further. Her fingers rubbed at her temple like the memory gave her a headache. I need you to look him in the face and own what you did. She spoke each part carefully, like instructions for something fragile. I need you to acknowledge that you made him perform for you. The room felt smaller with every word she added. And if I do not? I asked it even though I could feel the answer coming. The hope inside me still reached for a softer option. Something like a time limit that would quietly expire on its own. Then after we move, contact will be limited for a while. She did not raise her tone, which made it worse somehow. Text only, holidays maybe, no dropping by, no last-minute visits. Each restriction sounded like a door latch clicking shut. You are really willing to lose your family over this man? I threw my hands up, anger finally beating out fear for a second. He is not the only one who loves you inside these walls. The second I mentioned walls, I realized she was already outside them. I am not losing my family, she answered, jaw tight. I am refusing to let my future husband be treated like a prop. She let the word husband hang there between us for a long beat. You either join us as support or you stay where you are standing. You know that feeling when the world tilts just a little. Not a full collapse, just enough to make you grab something nearby. That is what hit when she used that word for him. The ground inside my head shifted, and nothing lined up anymore. You could ask for anything else from me. I sounded like I was bargaining for my own sentence. Help with bills, moving costs, even wedding plans, I would do it. I stared at her, hoping she would pick any of those trades. That is exactly the problem. She laughed without joy, shoulders rising then dropping. You want to buy your way out of the one thing that matters. Her eyes shine now not from anger but from something like mourning. An apology does not cost you money, it costs you pride. She took one step closer, close enough that I could see every twitch. And that is the only currency he believes from you right now. She dropped her gaze, then lifted it again, more resolved. You forced him down in front of everyone who mattered to me. She did not say the word, but my mind filled it in anyway. I need him to see you lower yourself without an audience this time. Her fingers tightened around the folder until the edges curled. So you want me out there, begging on his terms? I spat the words out, half disgust, half raw terror. You want me to walk up to the man who disrespected this home? I stopped myself just before repeating that old line again. He will not make you kneel, Mom. She flinched when she said it, like just naming it hurt. He is not interested in flipping the scene on you. She exhaled sharply and wiped under one eye with her knuckle. He just needs to hear you admit you were wrong to force it. Her voice wavered, then caught itself again. And I need to see you choose him for my sake, not yours. That last part slid right under every armor plate I had left. Behind her, near the entryway, my husband hovered silently. He had been listening long enough that his face gave everything away. He did not rush in to rescue me or argue on my behalf. He just met my eyes and gave the smallest nod. That tiny motion enraged me and grounded me at the same time. It felt like betrayal and also like confirmation that I had gone too far. If even he thought this was necessary, maybe I really had crossed a line. I looked back at my daughter and saw her waiting, not pleading. You understand what you are asking. My voice dropped to almost a whisper, rough around the edges. You are asking me to hand him back his self-respect with both hands. Saying it out loud made the task feel unbearably real. I am asking you to hand me back mine, she replied quietly. Her shoulders finally sagged like she was tired of standing strong. Because whether you meant to or not, you ripped that out too. She blinked fast, then straightened up again, walls back in place. I thought about all the strangers who had commented on my post. The ones who warned me I would lose her if I doubled down. The ones I dismissed as dramatic, bitter, exaggerating their own histories. Now I could feel every warning sitting right there in my hallway. My legs felt heavy as I stepped around the table. Each step toward the front door felt like walking into a storm. My heart pounded chest tight, palms damp, all of it. Behind me I heard her following, lighter, more hopeful, almost careful. I stopped with my hand on the knob and took one long breath. This was the point where I either clung to being right or chose her. Neither option felt clean, both tasted like losing something huge. I opened the door anyway because the alternative scared me more. He stood near the curb with his hands in his pockets. He looked up when the door moved, eyes guarded, jaw tense. My daughter hung back in the doorway, fingers pressed to the frame. All three of us were trapped in that strange triangle of history. I walked down the path until we were close enough to feel awkward. For a second I almost reached out to shake his hand. That felt ridiculous, so I let my arms hang at my sides. My mouth went dry, but I spoke before I could overthink it. I handled that night horribly. The words scratched on the way out, but they came. I used my expectations as a weapon and put you in a degrading spot. Saying degrading out loud felt like biting into something sharp. He stared at me like he was waiting for the catch. My instinct was to add an excuse, a reason, some context. I bit down on it and let the quiet stretch between us. The silence was worse than any shouting we had ever done. You did not deserve to be pushed down like that in my home. I felt my chin wobble and forced myself not to look away. You had every right to walk off after that, maybe forever. I dragged in a breath that shook a little around the edges. I am sorry, not because I want access to the wedding. I could feel my daughter listening hard behind me. I am sorry because I scared my own kid with how far I went. My eyes blurred, but I kept my gaze on his face. For a heartbeat he did not react at all. Then his shoulders dropped slightly, like something unclenched. He glanced over my head toward the doorway, toward her. Whatever he saw there softened his expression just a fraction. I will not grovel to you, I added, voice low but steady. I already did that to you once and it was ugly. I am standing here to admit I messed up and hurt both of you. I let my hands spread open, empty, because I had nothing else. He looked back at me, really looked this time, not just defensive. You broke something that night that does not fix in one conversation. His tone was even, but I heard the bruises under it. I am willing to try for her sake, not yours. I nodded because anything else would have been another battle. That is all I am asking for right now, I answered quietly. A chance to show I can be in your life without controlling it. I hated how much hope leaked into that sentence. Behind us, my daughter stepped down from the doorway. Her eyes were wet, but her mouth had a tiny relieved curve. She slipped her hand into his and squeezed once, grateful and shaky. Then she looked at me like I was a guest in her new world. We are still going to move, she reminded me gently. This conversation does not erase that. I nodded again, throat too tight for anything smart. I knew that part already, but hearing it still stung. But if you can keep doing this, she added, gesturing between us. Coming to us as equals, not as judge and jury. She swallowed and glanced at him before facing me again. Then I want you there when we sign the next set of papers. Wedding license. I did not say the words, but they flashed bright in my head. The idea of sitting on a little folding chair watching them sign. Being part of it instead of stuck outside peering through screens. I wish I could tell you I transformed right then. That I let go of every controlling impulse and became wise overnight. The truth is I still feel my jaw clench when he is late to things. I still have to bite my tongue when I think he is careless. But I also remember the look on my daughter's face at my table. The way her eyes shattered when he went down in front of us. I remember how her voice sounded when she said, "Protect us from you." Those memories sit like a hand on my shoulder every time I open my mouth. So yes, I ruined their relationship the first time around. I took a moment that could have been a simple boundary and weaponized it. Now she is building a life with him anyway, with or without my approval. And I am the one learning how to bend, one apology at a time.